So we're asked to simplify this complex expression. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure we remove this imaginary part from the denominator. So how do we do that? It's very simple. We use what is called conjugates. So let me use this. So conjugates is going to be we have 3 plus square root of 6i. So it's going to be the conjugate of this is going to be 3 minus square root of 6i multiplied by, I say divide by square root of 6i. So that is just the conjugate. So what we just need to do is to multiply through so that we can cancel this imaginary part on the denominator. So basically what we are going to do, I'm going to write it from here. I'm going to have 2 minus square root of 2i, then multiply by 3 minus square root of 6i, everything over 3 plus square root of 6i, then multiply by square root of 6i. Right? So the next thing we need to do is to, of course, expand by opening the brackets. So we have 2 multiplied by 3 is going to give us 6. Now 2 multiplied by negative square root of 6i, so it's going to give you negative 2 square root of 6i. Then maybe I'll come this way. So I have negative 2 square root of 2i multiplied by 3 is going to give us minus 3 square root of 2i. Then we also have negative square root of 2i multiplied by negative square root of 6i. So that is going to give us positive. Then we now have square root of 12i squared, right? Because negative times negative will give you positive. 2 multiplied by 6 is going to give you 12. I multiplied by I is going to give you I squared. So you know this. Then, of course, we can also expand this, okay? But this look like different of two squares. If you understand what is different of two squares, so you have a square minus b square. This is going to give you a minus b and a plus b, okay? So here you can see 3 is a and b is square root of 6i. But we can leave this here. But if you understand it, you can solve it from here. However, let's expand this. So 3 multiplied by 3 is going to give you 9. 3 multiplied by negative 6 negative square root of 6i. So it's going to have negative 3 square root of 6i. So you also have square root of 6i multiplied by 3 is going to give you plus 3 square root of 6i. Then we now have plus square root of 6i multiplied by minus square root of 6i. So that is going to give us negative 6i squared, okay? Because, of course, you know that when square roots multiply square roots, they cancels out. So that is how we are going to simplify the denominator. And when you look at it, this will easily cancel this. So, and let me also write it here. Note that I squared equals negative 1. So this is equals negative 1. So let's simplify this. So we now have 6 minus 2 square root of 6i minus 3 square root of 2i. So we can simplify square root of 12i squared. So 12 is 4 multiplied by 3. Then I squared is what? Minus 1. Right? So that's minus 1. Then out of, you have 9 minus 6. And I squared is also what? Negative 1. Just like we did with the numerator. So this is going to give you 6 minus 2 square root of 6i minus 3 square root of 2i. Then plus square root of 4 is 2. 2 square root of what? 3. Then negative 1. Out of, we have, this is going to give you 9. Negative 6 multiplied by negative 1 is going to give you plus 6. Right? So here we can now have 6 minus 2 square root of 6i minus 3 square root of 2i. Then negative 1 multiplied by this is going to give you negative square root of 3i over 15. Okay? And we can arrange putting the imaginary parts one side and also putting the real numbers in one side, or we say collect the like term. So you have 6 minus this, there's no imaginary. Imaginary means I, there's no imaginary there. So you have this by this, then minus, let's start with 2. This 2, negative 2, square root of 6i minus 3, square root of 2i, everything out of 15. So you can separate them or you can still leave your answer this way.